What is up, everyone? It's your boy Shaft, aka That Mill Guy, here with another talking head style video. I really wanted to talk about, thanks to a certain source that came out, shout out to Old Way Stray in the Mill Discord for bringing this to my attention. It really just got the kind of gears going in the back of my head, and I wanted to bring forward some thoughts about where I think Modern should go, some of the problematic standpoints that exist in the format right now, and what are some of the solutions that we can look to, or some of the directions that WotC can take to try and alleviate these problems, solve them entirely, whatever it might be. So I'm hoping y'all can entertain me for this discussion. Let me know your thoughts down below. And again, talking head style, so you're more than welcome to kind of put this in the background. It's really just here for the vocals of it, so the images don't really matter too much. But yeah, let's go on this ride as to why I believe the companions may or may not be that problematic. I think that Modern has been problematic for a while. MH2-Block-Constructed, I should say, not Modern. And why I think that needs to be solved, how it should be solved, I should say, and where are some potential futures to go through. Let's take a step through, first and foremost, with the initial point as to where I got this discussion from. So what would Modern look like without Luros? What would Modern look like without the Dream Den, without Yorion, without the companions in general? And this kind of got the gears going. It's not so much about the thread, it's more so about the topic. So obviously, people on Reddit, their own controversial thing. But I thought the topic was interesting to discuss. Obviously, the user here, again, user do_clerk_2261 is talking about some of the 3-drops that would come back into play, because the cost to take these out of your decks is very low, providing you with Luros and that mid-game, that long game that it provides you with. So things like Liliana, Seasoned Pyromancer, Bonecrusher Giant, Nettle Cyst, and other cards like Ensnaring Bridge in the non-Karn decks, Ashiok Dream Render, just some kind of other notable 3-drops that I'm thinking about here would definitely come back in a big way, just because now there's no downside to playing them. You can't just splash into them. Cards like Obosh will definitely see a big comeback for the red style strategies, because it's just better to be playing Luros, honestly. And what Luros provides, what we need to remember, right? We can go through each individual companion kind of shortly here. What Luros provides is essentially a statement saying, the moment you run out of answers, you as in my opponent, I am playing Luros, my opponent, the minute you run out of answers, I'm going to come back and steal this game. You always need to have an answer for it. Because the minute you run out of steam, you don't have that answer. You don't have that removal spell. You don't have that counter spell. I'm going to resolve Luros and run away with this game. I'm going to play Luros. I'm going to play Kroxa. I'm going to play Luros. I'm going to dash into Ragavan. I'm going to play Luros. I'm going to play Mishra's Bauble, and just on and on and on. There's so much value I'm going to extract out of this creature that you then are in top deck mode, and if you do not find a removal, I have officially won this game. And that's what Luros says, ultimately. That is the low cost of this card. Because you have to then say your primary plan is strong enough. If your primary plan is, then when it's not, Luros is strong enough. And that's the problem. And that's what Yorion is doing as well. Yorion is providing a sense of actual cohesion and stability in decks that couldn't have it before. Whereas in decks right now, without Yorion, you wouldn't be able to play playsets of Fury, Solitude, Teferis, 5 Fairies, Force of Negation. You wouldn't be able to play playsets of all these cards in a 60-card deck. But Yorion gives you the ability to play ETB effects that not only fix your mana, disrupt your opponent in valuable ways, but also says that in the long game, I'm behind, I can play Yorion to blink these effects to regain some of the value from these. And while playing an 80-card deck that allows me to play playsets of all the best cards in Modern, think 5-color Omnath and 4-color Blink. Again, all of the good cards in Modern, I can play them because now I have a reason to go 80 cards, create those playsets, and actually have a payoff for it. And that's what these kind of companions are doing for us right now. And I think the discussion needs to go into the Modern metagame at this point. Where are the companions being played themselves? And what is that doing to the Modern format? Where are the companions not being played? And what is that doing for the Modern format? And if we look at the metagame right now, we see a bunch of Luros strategies. Hammer Time, Mill, barely a Luros strategy, honestly. Jund, very primarily. Rakdos, very primarily. Death Shadow, for sure. And then some Yorion strategies. We see the Blink decks. We see the 5-color Omnat decks. It used to be the control decks, but now they're just playing Kahira to put into their hand and pitch to Solitude. And that's a whole other rant later in this video. We'll get to that in a second. But this is the metagame right now. And one thing I want to do before we get into a deeper discussion here is I want to rip off the Band-Aid. Okay? I just need y'all to understand that a lot of you that are more casual Modern players that go to your local FNM that play maybe once or twice a week, 3 games, 6 games, 7 games, 8 games, whatever, of Modern, aren't experiencing the Modern that the vast majority of competitive players, grinders, people that play the game at a higher level, what they're experiencing, you're not experiencing. So I've had a lot of people tell me that their local metagame is fine. It's so diverse. I can play whatever I want. I can get in games. I can be successful with anything. But that's not what we're trying to fix for. The problem is Modern is broken at a competitive level. Modern is not functioning at a competitive level, right? And it's been blinded by the fact that people are saying, oh, it's so diverse. If you're just a good pilot, you can get there. You can do whatever. Like, sure, you can. But this underlying aspect to all of this. And Modern Horizons 2, these companions are ultimately construct behind all of this. So just saying that your LGS meta is fine, you can play whatever and you can succeed with it, doesn't actually mean anything. Your LGS meta of 40, 50, 70 people doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, because paper is constrained by things that online aren't. There are people that got twin banned out underneath them and still have their Scalding Tarns and don't really, in the grand scheme of things, have to pay much for Ragavans to just play another Izzet deck and play Izzet Murktide. There are people who cannot afford $3,000 control decks in paper to play them, which is why you don't run across these decks. There are people who cannot afford playsets of Omnat, playsets of Solitude, whatever, for 5-color elementals, so you barely see that in paper. There are people that can pay $500 for Burn. There are people that can pay X amount of money for Mill. They can pay that much for Amulet because Amulet's been around for so long. There are people that can play humans and whatnot. But these are things that you see actively online, because this is where we have rental services. A lot of cards are cheaper. You can borrow things from people a lot easier. You can have multiple people. You can have multiple accounts renting from different mana traders, trading to each other to then meet the requirement to build a $2,000 deck that you wouldn't be able to get anywhere else for the low cost of $30 a month for one account, maybe $60 for like 2 accounts. You know what I mean? It's extremely easy to play these decks, which is why you don't get this in paper. You do not have that diverse of a metagame, and even if you do at your LGS, they're not that great players. I'm just ripping off the Band-Aid. Enough of a rant there. I'm going back into the metagame here. So we need to fix Modern at the MTGO League, Challenge, Mox type of level. What do I mean by this? Modern has always, or more so in the last couple of years, have been a format where you can play any kind of one of 30 decks and succeed with it if you play really well with it. That is fundamentally a problem at a competitive level, because you can't be ready for any singular deck in the format. You cannot, your 15 card sideboard, and now you're 14 thanks to a companion, cannot meaningfully actually be prepared for everything in this metagame. If everything is so diverse, you cannot possibly answer everything, which is a fundamental problem. You never have enough slots. That's why you have people constantly asking, what should we do with this sideboard? What should we do with this? Blah, blah, blah. So Modern has become this format of just drag racing. And that's what these companions have really honed in. Luros has shaved the fat and has said, you don't need 3 drops. You just need a concise plan of all these 2-1-0 drops. Create an aggressive mid-range tempo plan, and that's what you'll win with. I'm your payoff. Yorion has said that if you just add 20 cards, realistically 15 or 13, because you guys, some of those have to be lands. If you just add these cards in, I will then allow you to have a late game payoff and you are then able to play play sets of all the best cards in Modern, all of your favorite cards in your deck. You can play play sets of, you don't have to worry about 1 or 2 ofs, and you can succeed. And that's what it's allowed us to do. The deck building restrictions has forced Modern into a state of further unequivocal drag racing. And trust me, there isn't just one car that drag races better than everyone else. That's the whole point with cars. Eventually secrets get out, and it's not just one car manufacturer building the fastest racing car out there. At some point it's going to get leaked out, and other car manufacturers will start making cars that go pretty much the same speed. And at any given time, if the pilot of that vehicle, that plane, whatever, following my analogy, can make the right moves, you will just get there. And that's the problem. There isn't actually anything that works in terms of competitive diversity because of the companions, because of Modern Horizons 2, and that's what I want to get into. I hope that all made sense, so let's get right into it. First and foremost, I wanted to discuss a modern deck that isn't using any one of the companions because of various restrictions of having multiple pips in one of its primary spells, having higher than 3 drops, lower than 3 drops, needing to be very consistent, so it has to be 60 cards. All these things combining together make it so this is a deck that is very good at what it does. These pilots are very high skill players. This deck is a very complicated strategy, and they're able to drag race forward. They generally don't want to interact. That is their whole plan. They want to play cards like kind of play sets of Urza's Saga, large amounts of Cavern of Souls. This deck is only playing 2, but sometimes it's 2 to 4 to just say, I don't need to deal with you. I have my own plan, and I'm just going to enact that. That's it. And that's what Ambient Titan has been doing. Titan has always been known for technically not having a bad matchup ever. That's what it's doing. Grixis Death Shadow, a Luro strategy. Again, saying that you just shave the fat. Play Mishra's Bauble. Play 4 Mishra's Bauble so you have a higher chance of drawing all of these cards that are just good. Why would you want to play more copies of other cards that are good instead of just playing the best cards in higher percentages with something on Mishra's Bauble that you can recur with Luros? Just play the Dress Down that does everything. It draws a card and it does everything. Play cards like Expressive Iteration, the most busted sorcery in the modern format. I actually think Expressive Iteration is more of a busted card than Prismatic Ending in modern. It's arguable, sure. I think they're very close, but I think Iteration is there. So why not just play all these cards? Just run away with it. Finally, 4-color Blink. Look at all these playsets. You're playing an 80-card deck. Yorian says, I can play 4 Coatls with 4 Omnats. Prismatic Ending, Expressive Iteration, Force. Spreading Seed, Abundant Growth. I can play all these cards together, and the mana base makes sense. That's what Yorian says. And you can drag away, so you can just move forward. Because Prismatic Ending answers everything. Solitude is a threat and an answer for free. I can now play Teferi Time Raveler, tap out, and I have an answer for everything. I will have a blue spell to pitch to Force because Omnath is every color. I will have a white spell to pitch to Solitude because Omnath is every color. And it just gets nonsensical from there. Control decks are playing Kahira not to make Solitude a 4/3, but instead to make a 3-mana pitch. It essentially just makes Solitude 3 mana. That's all Kahira is here to do. 3 mana to pitch to Solitude. That's what's become of the companions and Modern Horizons 2 block constructed. So I want to get into my first solution as to how we can try and fix Modern, how we can try and fix the companion issues, or fix the Modern Horizons issues. First and foremost, we can ban it all. Ban all the companions. We can do that. Right? Precedents for it. We already see this stuff in Lutri. I don't know why I have the German version up. I apologize. Let's go to the English version. I don't. Okay, that was really weird. But we can ban them all. This was banned out of the gates in Commander, nonsensically. It was absolutely the worst decision to ban this out of the gate with Commander. I think there's so many things wrong with Commander banning philosophy, but this is a result of one of them. We can just ban them. It's fine. We make arbitrary decisions to banning this companion. Why didn't we just do the other ones? Again, Luros is going to be... I don't know why it's coming in different languages, but we can just ban this. Why not? Just get it out of here. Again, like I said, all this card says is you can trim the fat. You can play a very cohesive strategy, and I will pay you off for that. I will be your mid game. I will be your late game if your drag race of a strategy does not get there. Ban them out. But the problem is, remember that once we ban those, Modern Horizons 2 is still an ever-present problem. We don't know where the balances are going to tip, where they're going to ebb and flow. And I believe that Modern Horizons 2, we're still going to see what's worse yet to come if we lose these companions. And I think I want to get into that discussion near the end of the video as kind of the final topic. And I think first and foremost, we can ban the companions, and we'd have to ban all of them. I don't think we should just ban Luros and just be done with it. We still have Yorion taking our top end. We're still going to have another companion come in. Their errata was fine, but it still didn't do enough. It did not do enough. But let's go on some positive news. I think the next solution, number 2, that we could use is just print more companions. Make this a staple of the game. If you're going to provide me with the restriction that gives me so much upside, give me more options. Give me a reason not to play Luros of the Dream Den. Give me a reason to not play Yorion. Give me it used to be that give me a reason not to play Zerda in Legacy for Bomberman strategies. Give me a reason not to play our big Kraken, to not just play a copy spell combo deck with all even numbered cards. So I wanted to explore this design space. We have all these companions right here with various restrictions. Gyruda saying, okay, I just want even numbered cards. Oba saying, I just want odd numbered cards. Lutri, one of everything. Zerda, we're actually going to get into that in a second. Umori, everything has to be the same creature type. Why don't we explore this? And I want to do that by giving you a simple example. Zerda, the Dawnbreaker, a Boros companion. Active abilities you activate that aren't mana abilities cost 2 Lex to activate. They can't reduce the cost to less than 1. That is straight training grounds. So we've taken the permanent ability of a spell and attached it to a companion. So that's an interesting design space. We don't even need to return to Ikoria for this, realistically. We could actually just put this in in an open summer set, like the core sets. We could put them in the core sets. We could put them in the next Modern Horizons. We could just put more companions in there. Give me if Luros is a problem, give me a reason not to play Luros. Give me a reason so that the Grixis Death Shadow list doesn't play Luros. Maybe give it something that if you lose life, it costs less. Every time you lose life, this spell costs less. That immediately, there you go. That goes in the Death Shadow deck. Give me a reason not to play it. Shout out to Enrico in the Mill Discord for giving me this idea. Why don't we make something like Forsaken Monument a companion? So we could say it costs 1 less for each colorless source on the battlefield. We could remove the +2/+2. Every colorless spell you cast gains you 2 life, and then you tap a permanent and you just get 2 if you're creating colorless. Right? This might be busted. I'm not sure, but I'm just throwing out the idea of Forsaken Monument as a companion. This is the type of thing that we're already doing with Training Grounds and Zerda. So why not just already do this with something, again, like Forsaken Monument? This is the type of design space that we can explore for these companions. Because ultimately, I think one of the problems is that Luros and Yorion are so good at what they do, there's no reason to not play these cards. If you can make the exemptions to play these cards, then you should do them. And it is extremely incorrect not to do it because of what it provides you. It is extremely incorrect for all those players saying that we should be letting these cards go. We should play 3 drops in our sideboard in a Luros deck. We should play 4 drops in a sideboard in my Luros deck. I'm sorry, you're probably not winning games of Magic to a high extreme, and I'm not going to be here when you're losing. That's not on me. That's your decision to lose more games of Magic because you don't want to make good deck building choices, and that's just the fact of the matter with Luros and Yorion. So I'll see you on the losers bracket, I guess, because I suck at Magic too. Anyway, the last thing that we need to talk about is what I was talking about with banning companions. Ultimately, I still think that regardless of whether companions stay or not, something needs to change in Modern. And I want to highlight this with really just straight up the card I want to get banned, why I think it should get banned, some of the other power cards in the format, and what they're doing. So there's a lot here. Let's say in a world where we do or do not ban companions, right? If we ban companions, these cards still exist. Because right now we're playing Modern Horizons 2 Block Constructed. I've said this multiple times in the video. If you do not think that Modern Horizons 2 has drastically shifted the Modern format, you do not play enough Modern, or you do not know what you're talking about. We are literally playing, for the 10th, 15th, 20th time, Modern Horizons 2 Block Constructed. That is a fact. If you are not playing Urza Saga, Ragavan, a companion, or a pitch elemental, if you're not playing any one of these cards, you are doing it wrong and you are not succeeding. You have to work way harder than you traditionally have to actually succeed in Modern, and there are much easier ways to do so, and you are losing much more games than you should be thanks to that. That's your fault. Solitude should be banned. This card is dumb. I want everyone to understand the effect that Teferi Time Raveler has on the Modern format. A lot of people still have, did have, will have problems with this card. I think it's a dumb card. Teferi Time Raveler, the static ability was the strongest static ability ever printed on a static ability Planeswalker. And we used to have Force Negation, but you used to be able to play creatures. When the Teferi player tapped out for Teferi, you just play creatures, played some haste, it would die. Teferi wasn't that much of a problem, but it really was. Then you got Force Negation. Force Negation only answered non-creature spells, which is, again, you weren't able to use destroy target Planeswalker type of spells because they would have Force Negation. Because a lot of those spells came at sorcery speed. If they weren't at sorcery speed, they were exorbitant high costs. So fine. Now you have Force of Negation on a creature that has lifelink, which is very relevant because Burn is trying to drag race through this whole damn format while y'all are trying to take it one step at a time and slow this format down. Burn is trying to take it down. So this has lifelink. It has flash. And it pitches to, or it can be cost by pitching some of the most powerful cards in the format that people are playing in playsets. See Prismatic Ending. Prismatic Ending is probably the second, in my opinion, the second most busted sorcery in the modern format. A lot of people will argue first. This is just my personal opinion. Again, I think Expressive Iteration is more powerful, but I will see your arguments for Prismatic Ending. I understand. Prismatic Ending answers everything. It answers every single type of permanent that you could care about in the modern format. Realistically, you should be caring about problematic permanents in turns 1 and 2. If you do not care about those permanents, you are then going to be caused problems by other permanents that you really shouldn't have any care about. See Blood Moon. Blood Moon is a problem right now because of ways to ramp into it. It is not a problem when Mono Red Prison is a deck that can just poop out a bunch of spells that give you extra red mana and it just plays it on turn 1. Okay, cool. Whatever. They got the nut draw. That's not a problem. The problem is that when you don't answer that turn 1 elf, that turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, that then leads to the turn 2 Blood Moon. The Blood Moon's not the problem. The problem is you didn't have Prismatic Ending to answer the elf, to answer the Utopia Sprawl, to then give yourself enough turns to build a mana base that can work around a Blood Moon and eventually answer it. Prismatic Ending does all of that. The problem is when Prismatic Ending isn't relevant, just play goddamn Solitude. You can tap out for Teferi Time Raveler, have the answers to both pitch to Force for non-creature spells and pitch to Solitude for creature spells at instant speed at any goddamn time. And that is the problem. Teferi Time Raveler isn't the problem. I'm using Teferi as an example to exacerbate this problem. Why these decks are able to play sets of 3 fairy, play sets of 5 fairy, 2-3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor, because they can tap out on curve to play those cards because they have answers like this available to them. Solitude is a problematic card in the modern format. These pitch elementals are problematic cards in the modern format, and free spells always have been. The problem with these cards is they are free. They need to have a mana cost. They need to be much cheaper. They could be 1. If Solitude cost 1 in exile a white card, no one would complain about this card. Absolutely no one would complain about this card. This card would be so fair, it hurts. The fact that it does not cost mana is a problem. It can't be that free. You should not be able to pitch out an endurance at instant speed to deal with your opponent's graveyard hate while tapped out. Your opponent should be able to make that read and not just play around it. That is the problem with Solitude. Finally, I want to touch on Ragavan. Ragavan and Prismatic Ending, ultimately, I don't think are... What is going on here? Ragavan and Prismatic Ending, ultimately, I don't think are the problems in Modern, because in my take, they are very fair cards that do fair things in the best way possible. They are the most fair, powerful cards printed in recent memory. Ragavan itself isn't a problem because we have removal for it. The problem is that the removal spells being exacerbated right now are sorcery speed like Prismatic Ending. Cost a lot of resources like Solitude. The problem is once you answer this card, there isn't much value to it. You've answered one of the bigger threats in the deck. Dragon's Range Channeler, sure, once you enable Delirium, deals 3 damage to you. The great thing about it is, in the early games, it's just 1, and in the late game, whatever, it's just 3 damage. You usually can mitigate that with a couple of blocks, maybe a little bit of life gain. Ragavan runs away with the game by stealing your cards and ramping, by fixing mana, getting around Blood Moon, stealing your powerful cards to then cast Beating the Mirror once Ragavan connects. That is what Ragavan does. The problem, obviously, this card is problematic in Legacy. It's probably going to get banned in Legacy. I don't know when that's going to happen. That needs to probably happen ASAP. But I think it's perfectly fine in Modern if Fatal Push is a playable Magic card. Fatal Push is not playable as a Magic card right now. Path to Exile is not a playable Magic card right now. If you think banning Prismatic Ending will solve this problem, no. Banning Prismatic Ending will make Ragavan worse. Path to Exile is not a good removal spell, and Prismatic Ending literally proves that. Prismatic Ending is a sorcery speed spell. It is sorcery speed, and it is a better... Prismatic Ending is a better removal spell than 90% of the instant speed removal spells in Modern right now. I said it. And that's fact. That's just straight fact, because it answers everything. And that's why we need more options. We need Fatal Pushes. We need black strategies that interact, that play low to the ground creatures to not only have to play Lightning Bolts and Unholy Heats. Both of those spells are really powerful right now because the amount of Planeswalkers and low-cost creatures running around in the format. Unholy Heat kills all of these things. Lightning Bolt kills all of these things. If these things did not exist, if the Solitudes did not exist, you would not be able to tap out to play Planeswalkers. You would not be able to play these Planeswalkers. Unholy Heat and Lightning Bolt see a lot less play. We start playing Fatal Push. We have more instant speed interaction in the format. We're able to deal with these goddamn creatures in the Modern format. That's the truth. That's how I think we can fix this format. Ban all the companions, which isn't really a solution because I still think we need to do this. Ban all the companions, print more companions, or we should just be banning the companions and banning these cards in Modern. I think it's Solitude. I personally think it's Solitude, some amount of the elementals along with it. Modern Horizons has been the most powerful set probably ever in recent memory. Right? Like, in general, for standard, for... it didn't go into standard, sorry. I'm saying in comparison to standard sets, in comparison to, like, draft-only sets, like the, Conspiracy and stuff like that. Like, in general, like, the induction of power from these sets, just think about Modern Horizons 1 and Ren and 6, like, what that did to Legacy. Like, if these sets can, like, break fundamentally Eternal formats, we see how they hone in problematic cards that already exist in the format, like Companions. And that's what I wanted to try and get across in so many words in this video. Companions are already problematic in this format. You either need to get rid of them and ban some cards out of Modern Horizon 2, or just make more Companions. Give me more reasons to not play Luros, to not play Yorion, because right now it is literally only correct to play the most powerful cards in Modern Horizons, Luros, or Yorion, or some combination of all three of those, sorry. Some combination of those. That's it. It is correct. And if you're not doing that, you're playing your Modern deck wrong, and you're losing more games than you have to, or you're working harder than you have to get wins. That's just the fact. And that's the sad thing I have right now. That is the end of my long rant. This is going to be a long talking video. I'm looking at this right now. It's almost like 30 minutes. But thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Let me know what you thought of my points. Let me know some other designs of companions that you would like to see. I have some ideas myself. I'd love to get that chat going. Let me know what you think I was wrong at with some of my opinions. Happy to have that discussion with you. I am just rambling at some point, so if you think I was wrong, let me hear it. Let me hear what you think and why. Let's have that conversation because we're all just here to stay informed. So thanks everyone for hanging out. And hope you'll join me for the next one. Remember that even the impossible is possible. And as we ponder that thought, I hope you'll join me next time as we take a glimpse into